Hi there, welcome to another episode. So this video is essentially a direct update from last year's video, pruning my Jostaberry. But on this one I just want to put a lot more emphasis on my thought process, why I do the things that I do, and tell them to you so that you can hopefully apply them to your trees, shrubs, really anything that you're needing to prune. It's pretty universal. So let's take an overall look at the Jostaberry behind me here, which is the one we're going to be pruning, and identify some of the problems that I have to fix. Alright, so here it is. First off, you can tell that there's a lot of branches just right here. There's just too many branches there that are going to be crossing and shading each other out. So that's one of the things that I'll definitely have to address. Second, you can see some crossing right here. These ones are rubbing. That's a really big no-no. That can cause wounds to appear, and that can allow bacteria and fungus to start infecting the Jostaberry, which we don't want. So that's something I'm going to have to address. And then there's also a branch here in the back. It shoots up and crosses in to this little area right here, which I'm also going to have to fix. Other than that, it's not too bad. I do notice that there's a couple vertical branches coming off of a horizontal branch, which is not something I really like, but I might just remove this one and leave the rest. That back one there, the back one isn't all that bad because it has plenty of space there to grow. Alright, so first is this branch here. You can see it comes out pretty decently, but it's almost growing in towards the center, and in the process of doing that, it's just crossing into all the other branches here that are actually growing in a better direction. So rather than trying to correct it this time, I'd rather just remove the whole thing in favor of the branch that's below it. So I'm going to prune it pretty close, but leaving a little bit of a bulge at the base there. Right where that branch comes out, it starts to bulge a little bit. Most trees and shrubs will do that, and that little bit of a thickening is what you want to leave to allow it to heal over nicely. But for the most part, that's still relatively flush. Just like that. That's perfect. Next is this branch here, which is the one that is growing up into the canopy there. But I quite like this one because it's at the end and it has its own little area to fill out. So I'm just going to remove the one that crosses into areas that I don't want it to go and leave the other one. Alternatively, I could have also pruned it down to this one. In that case, I wouldn't have had any obstruction happening, but I quite like this one and I want to try to keep that. So I'm just going to try to take it down to this one first. If that doesn't work, I can always prune it down to this branch here next year. Again, leaving a little bit of that bulge there and snapping it off. The branch that's beside it, this one, could be a problem next year, but there's not a whole lot around it. So for this coming growing season, I'm just going to leave it. But chances are pretty high that I'll end up removing this one next year because it's just growing in towards the center, which is something that you don't really want. But I just don't think it's going to cause problems this next year, so that's why I'm leaving it. So the next set of branches is that big clump that I've got going on over here. Now this branch is the primary problem. I pruned it off last year to this bud here in hopes that it would just shoot out this way, but that never happened. Instead it shot out this branch and this branch here. So that's fine. All I have to do, or all I'm going to do, is prune it back to this one here, because it has its own space. It occupies the top of the canopy, so that'll be fine. So all I have to do is prune it back down to here. Try to come in at a good angle. Like so. Prune it off just like that. Now next I'm going to mention that it's not ideal when a branch comes off at the bottom of another branch and then shoots up. But in this case, it's actually not really hindering anything. It's not really congesting the area. It has its own little space. But that is something that I may or may not remove next year. But I'm just going to leave it this year because it is so strong and so vigorous that I don't really want to have to prune it. So this area I'm going to leave. There's still a lot of branches there, but they all have their own space for now. So for this year I'm just going to leave it. Next year we'll have to reevaluate it and see if I want to change anything. So the last branch I'm going to remove is going to be this one, and that's only because I think it'll interfere with the one above it, which is actually growing horizontally and pretty favorably. So that's why I'm just going to take out this one to preserve the one above it. Same thing, leave the little bit of bulge there and snip that right off. The one behind it I'll leave because it has its own space to grow. Okay, so that is that. There really weren't that many cuts that I had to make, but I do hope that my explanation makes sense on why I did the cuts that I did, and that you can apply them to your own trees and shrubs. And this is really a format I want to take on going forward, just really explaining what I'm doing, explaining my thought process, and hope that it helps you guys. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tot de volgende keer.